we anticipate all our parks are going to be quite busy.
With this stretch of warm weather across BC, many people will likely spend some time outdoors this weekend. But as COVID numbers remain high, there are concerns popular outdoor spaces could get too crowded in the sunshine.
A good news, bad news day for Canada on the vaccine front.
I have some very good news to share about Pfizer.
Our top vaccine producer steps up after Moderna cut shipments to our country.
This news is obviously very disappointing.
The premise for a 2030 Olympic and Paralympic bid is rooted in the fundamental notion that we can and will use existing facilities.
We've done it before and we could do it again, much cheaper. The man who helped bring the Winter Games to Vancouver more than a decade ago says he's hoping to see the city make a go for 2030.
BC is heading into the weekend with 1,005 new cases of COVID-19 across the province tonight, and 6 more people have died in the last day. The province's hospitalization rate continues to soar, with a record 425 patients currently being treated for COVID-19. 127 are in intensive care. With an escalating number of people ending up in hospital, staff say the health system is extremely stressed.
Numbers have shot up quite precipitously right now. The ICUs are filling up. Patients are coming in a lot quicker, and they seem to be a lot younger and quite a lot more sick. We're just putting quite a stress on an already stressed system in our hospital right now. Our hospital system is incredibly stressed right now. Our ICUs are more stressed than they've ever been, and it may sound like crying wolf, and we've heard that as a public for so long, and we're all exhausted. Nobody wants shutdowns. Nobody wants to be in a situation, including us. We recognize all too well the stresses and the collateral damage of all this, but we need to get through these next few weeks until the vaccine can take effect and help us with the problem.
Ontario is announcing a series of tough new measures to control the rampant spread of COVID-19 in that province, including checkpoints at border points in Manitoba and Quebec to control travel. It's also taking medical advice to extend the current stay-at-home order by 2 more weeks for a total of 6. Premier Doug Ford is also giving police and bylaw officers new powers to enforce health measures, and outdoor public facilities like golf courses will be closed. Ford says along with vaccines, these measures will get COVID-19 under control. The next briefing from Dr. Bonnie Henry is expected on Monday afternoon, and more restrictions or amendments to public health orders could be on the way. Health Minister Adrian Dix is pleading with people to stay home this weekend.
The reason not to travel this weekend is to be respectful of other communities, to protect your own lives, protect the life of your family, to protect the health of your family, to protect the health of your neighborhood and community. So that's why we need to stay local this weekend. But clearly, all actions have been on the table and continue to be on the table, and we'll consider what they're doing in Ontario and potentially other options here in BC.
In order for us to make adjustments to that formula, we will be working, we would need to work with, as we are right now, with provinces and territories.
Despite calls for the federal government to move vaccines to COVID hotspots, the Prime Minister says that's something the provinces would have to agree on.
Yeah, I'm concerned.
I just kind of keep my own distance and be responsible for myself.
You are going to want to go out and about.
It feels like summer here in Metro Vancouver, and the warm weather is expected to continue right through the weekend. And as people head outdoors to enjoy the sunshine and blue skies, there are concerns parks and beaches could get too crowded to allow for any kind of reasonable social distancing.
I mean, it's a beautiful day. People are out. People have been trying to get out now for months. So, yeah, our expectation is our parks will be busy.
Park rangers in Vancouver will be patrolling beaches and parks this weekend. They won't be handing out tickets, but if people do blatantly disregard public health orders, they will call Vancouver Police for assistance.
You know, our rangers will be there definitely to educate and support people. But our expectation is that people understand what the rules are and what the regulations are, and that people will follow them.
I tend to keep my own distance and I deal with myself.
I don't know. I don't think people are going to be too concerned about it just based on the rate.
Imagine it's going to be crazy here on the weekend.
In New Westminster, the brand new playground at Pier Park was criticized for attracting a large crowd last weekend. With this stretch of warm weather, City Councillor Chuck Puckmeyer worries people may forget about social distancing.
What really struck me was last week down at the River Market, just on the boardwalk, I was having a coffee, and I was a little concerned about the number of people that weren't wearing masks and the number of people that were sort of walking in close proximity and passing each other within touching shoulders.
Respect our community, and please let people from the community enjoy it. We'll let you know when it's time to come back.
The mayor of White Rock is sending a clear message, asking people who don't live nearby to stay away from the popular oceanfront city and keep to their own communities.
We'd love to have you here most times of the year, but COVID is just not the time for you to come visiting. There'll be enough of the local people, White Rock and South Surrey, of course, tend to believe it's their beach as well, to come down and enjoy it. Parking will be really at a minimum if many people come down here, and it'll just be too packed.
The current restrictions allow outdoor gatherings of up to 10 people as long as there are still safety measures in place, like wearing masks and physical distancing.
We're just hoping that people understand. We're almost there. Let's keep encouraging that messaging. Let's stay, let's just keep focused on doing what we should be doing.
In New Westminster, Ashley Burr, City News.
There are no large-scale gatherings like this one planned for Vaisakhi this weekend, but many people are still going to celebrate. Surrey RCMP are reminding people to make sure they're following public health orders, which limit outdoor gatherings to just 10 people. The police department's COVID-19 compliance and enforcement team will be stepping up patrols across the city this weekend and handing out tickets to anyone or any group that doesn't comply.
We just want to urge the public, if you must gather, if you want to have a picnic with your family, please do so with your immediate family members, and keep your distance and follow public health orders.
If you see someone not complying with COVID-19 public health guidelines, you can call your police department's non-emergency line. Premier John Horgan got his first vaccination at a local pharmacy in Victoria this afternoon. The Premier is 61 and qualifies for the AstraZeneca vaccine that's being made available to British Columbians in the 55 to 64 age bracket. He says he barely felt it.
As of today, 27% of British Columbians have been vaccinated. The AstraZeneca product is safe. I've just had it applied to myself. My wife's slated to get her shot next week. I want all British Columbians to take advantage. When you get the call, when you get the opportunity, get vaccinated.
Horgan is also pleading with people to stay safe this weekend, noting that while people should enjoy the weather, they should also be maintaining social distancing.
Something isn't quite working if there's doses that are potentially getting wasted.
As AstraZeneca vaccine sits unused around the country, many people ask, should younger Canadians be eligible to receive that jab now?
More doses arriving sooner means more people getting their vaccines faster.
With Canada under siege by rising COVID-19 infections, our top vaccine producer is stepping up.
Canada has now signed an agreement with Pfizer for 8 million more doses of the vaccine. This is on top of what we have already purchased.
Under the new deal, Pfizer will send 4 million more doses in May, followed by 2 million in June and another 2 million in July, blunting the impact of new delays with the Moderna vaccine. Its next shipment of 1.2 million doses will be slashed to just 650,000. And the drug maker says up to 2 million shots that were supposed to come to Canada in the second quarter would be punted to the third.
This news is obviously very disappointing. Our government will, however, continue to bring vaccines into the country in the face of volatile supply chains.
She says we're also getting a boost from the single-shot Johnson & Johnson vaccine.
Canada will receive an initial shipment of approximately 300,000 doses during the week of April 27th, to be delivered to the provinces at the beginning of May,
The J&J vaccine is still on pause in the U.S. over rare cases of blood clots. Similar concerns have been raised about the AstraZeneca shot, prompting Canada to suspend its use in people under 55.
Millions of doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine have been administered around the world, and this rare event is exactly that. It's very rare.
The Australian government said today the death of a woman who developed a blood clot after being vaccinated with AstraZeneca was likely linked to the vaccine. But again, as you heard from Dr. New, Canada continues to emphasize that the benefits far outweigh the risks, and we're still going to get 4.1 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine by the end of June. Now back to J&J. The Prime Minister says we will get the first 300,000 doses of Johnson & Johnson by the end of April, but Health Canada will keep a close eye on what's happening in the U.S. before those doses are distributed. Karen Ciolin, City News.
For the most part, as long as you are still symptomatic, as long as you are still sick, and you have a medical professional saying that you should not be in the workplace, your employer cannot and should not, more importantly, be forcing you back into the workplace.
As the NHL postpones Friday's Canucks-Oilers game as Vancouver players recover from a COVID-19 outbreak, a Vancouver labor lawyer explains the rules around returning to work and what to do if you don't feel safe in your workplace.
This could be the perfect model for future games.
We're beyond a recovery for tourism. This is really about rebuilding tourism.
To me, it just sounds like a rah, let's have another circus and distract everybody.
The man who helped bring the Winter Games to Vancouver more than a decade ago says we could do the same in 2030, igniting excitement and debate. John Furlong made his plea before the Vancouver Board of Trade Friday afternoon, saying the event could run much cheaper by piggybacking on the developments from 2010.
The premise for a 2030 Olympic and Paralympic bid is rooted in the fundamental notion that we can and will use existing facilities and venues and involve new communities.
Furlong says there are usable venues across the province, and if communities are willing, he expects a Vancouver bid could evolve into more of a BC bid.
We believe that we could end up with a project that could have as many as 8 or 9 communities in it. There's a ways to go there. We think the infrastructure's there. We think the facilities are there.
Tourism Vancouver is seeing a rough road ahead following a drawn-out pandemic, giving the plan a thumbs up.
And rebuilding tourism is not the goal in of itself, but tourism as a supporter for the broader economic rebuild and restart of our economy. And I like the opportunity here that perhaps it rebuilds investor confidence in the tourism sector, which has been shaken badly.
However, Olympic bids are often the subject of controversy. Calgary recently started a process looking into another bid, but voted against holding the Olympics again. Here at home, Vancouver City Councillor Jean Swanson says the event would be at odds with the city's environmental priorities, and she'd like to see the cash invested to fight homelessness.
Both the Olympics and Expo 86 were responsible for rising land and house prices. And we're in the midst of a housing crisis, and the main cause of that crisis is that land is too expensive.
She also says social housing commitments from the previous Olympics fell short of expectations.
The recommendation was for 3,200 units, and we got a handful of a few hundred. Not nearly 3,200.
But in the meantime, the province has yet to endorse the idea, a necessary step to move forward. We would also likely face some stiff competition.
There's been some talk still in Japan at Sapporo, which we're not sure what might happen there. There's been talk in Spain. There's been some other discussions. Salt Lake for a while spoke about it, and then I think they've switched more to 2034. But, you know, we're trying to be the bid that everyone is scared of.
According to Furlong, the 2010 Games generated over $1 billion in local development and attracted over 600,000 visitors to the region. Canada won a record-setting 14 gold medals on home soil and a total of 26 medals. In Vancouver, David Zura, City News.
2 years since a man was shot and killed in Kitsilano, and Vancouver police are using the second anniversary to appeal for information in the case. On April 16, 2019, Manoj Kumar was shot and killed in a vehicle that was parked behind a restaurant on Burrard Street and West 4th Avenue. Police believe this was a random attack. No one has been arrested.
We have a photo here
This photo was taken just after the incident occurred. This is a photo of the two suspects who parked in a lane further south of 4th Avenue. They parked in a white SUV. This is them getting back into the vehicle. It is hard to see the suspects, but again, we're hoping this jogs the memory of anybody who does have information. We're still not sure as to why this happened. And that's something that we're needing more information on. And so we need people to come forward. It's been 2 years and the family deserves closure.
Call Vancouver Police if you can help with the case. Trina Hunt's family and friends plan to hold a candlelight vigil at Rocky Point Park on Sunday evening. It'll mark 3 months since the Port Moody woman mysteriously disappeared. The family plans to make a new statement and take questions from the media. A GoFundMe launched in February has raised more than $20,000 to help fund the continuation of the search with the help of private crews. Police have said the investigation remains active and that foul play is not suspected.
To expect pretty much our entire team to be ready to play, and one practice in a pregame skate is a little bit hard to comprehend.
Just a day after Canucks forward JT Miller spoke out about his frustration with how quickly the Canucks were returning to the ice, the NHL confirmed the Canucks' return to play is being delayed.
The Canucks being part of a union, that specific thing is going to be subject to and dictated by the collective bargaining agreement, their players agreement, whatever that says.
So in a COVID-19 world, when exactly is it safe to return to the workplace? And if you don't feel safe, what can you do? CityNews spoke with employment lawyer Leah Moody, who explains the rules.
For the most part, as long as you are still symptomatic, as long as you are still sick, and you have a medical professional saying that you should not be in the workplace, your employer cannot and should not, more importantly, be forcing you back into the workplace.
But according to Moody, if you're not going into work because you feel unsafe, there's a few more considerations.
Feeling unsafe is not enough to actually give you the right to stay home. You have to be able to point to something that's objectively happening in your workplace that's making it unsafe. So if your employer isn't following protocols, if they aren't requiring people to wear masks, if it doesn't allow for social distancing, then you can insist that you be accommodated in some way.
And not showing up to work without reason could result in losing your job.
But from a legal perspective, if your employee is simply just not coming to work and they haven't engaged in a work refusal through WorkSafe BC and they don't have a medical accommodation, that's technically a job abandonment. So the employer would technically be within their rights to require that they come back to work on a certain day. And then if they don't come back to work, you can accept that as a job abandonment or as a resignation.
Marada Fatour, City News.
In order for us to make adjustments to that formula, we will be working, we would need to work with, as we are right now, with provinces and territories.
Canada's doctors say the federal government needs to step in and shift vaccines to COVID hotspots, provide paid sick leave, and move medical resources to where they're needed most. But the Prime Minister and Intergovernmental Affairs Minister say they don't have the power to do that. The provinces do.
I know that this kind of conversation is currently underway, but I don't believe that we are on the cusp of receiving a consensus from provincial premiers throughout the country to change the sharing formula that is used, and that was accepted by all premiers and that was proposed by premiers last December.
And it doesn't seem the provinces and territories are interested in sharing. Alberta has refused Ontario's request for ICU nurses. Ontario has added more intensive care beds, but there's not enough staff to work them. Nova Scotia's premier saying he's against changing the vaccine distribution formula, even as the Canadian Medical Association warns the pandemic has passed a critical point and changes are needed now. In a statement, CMA President Dr. Ann Collins says says, "We are one country and it's time we started acting as one by deploying resources where they are most needed. If we can't achieve this through voluntary cooperation, then more and stronger measures might be needed." Justin Trudeau has repeatedly said Canada's federal model of government means he can't force provinces to act. But the PM does have a powerful tool he's refused to use, the Emergencies Act, which would give the federal government sweeping powers in a national crisis. But as of now, Ottawa says that's not on the table.
The government's cabinet isn't considering this kind of eventuality right now. And premiers have also not asked us to invoke this legal tool.
Meanwhile, there is an update on the vaccine front. Canada has signed a new deal with Pfizer for an extra 8 million doses to start arriving in May. And the Johnson & Johnson vaccine now has a delivery schedule with the first shipment to arrive in the last week of April. In Ottawa, Xiaoli Li, City News.
Vancouver's news is always available on the radio with News 1130 or online anytime at citynews1130.com. Your next edition of City News is tonight at 11. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.